watching the Vomitorium. Did you know that bees make up every percent of my favorite star system? Bees also know that they can go support the show at www.streamlabs.com/Vomitorium Live. Buzz buzz!
One, two, three, four.
You know, I always leave the info box onto whatever it was last time, and I don't even... Oh, I actually already forgot what I was going to talk about today. I've got like 10 tabs open. But I guess I've been watching quite a bit of anime, so maybe we'll talk about some of the things I've been watching. I know that's some of the tabs I've had open. Holy moly. They're coming in spades, aren't they? Anyway, welcome to the Vomitorium, everyone. As always, I'm your host, The Metal, and here's the show where we talk about whatever the heck I want to talk about tonight. Hope you're having a wonderful evening. If you happen to be, it'd be nice if you would just grab that link from wherever it is and share it off with somebody else. Love them, hate them, I don't care. Not mandatory, just appreciated. Anyhow, we'll get into things. So, this weekend has been, I guess, pretty good for anime. Frieren came back. I think, when was it? Was it Friday or Saturday? I don't recall. It was probably Saturday. But Frieren's back. I had to win Saturday because I haven't had a show since then. Season 2, picking up right where we left off, not skipping a beat, I believe. I don't know. It's been a while since I read that part of the manga, so I don't remember too much was there, if we skipped a chapter or not. But back on the road, trying to make it through. Had an interesting encounter with a magical cavern, or I guess an anti-magical cavern, filled with lots of rocks that absorb magic powers and left most of their party completely useless, since 2/3 of their party are mages, leaving them entirely in the hands of Stark. But he just didn't have the gall to fight the thing they referred to as a dragon. I remembered seeing that monster. I don't remember much about the manga, but I remember seeing that monster. I myself would not have called it a dragon, but I guess this giant newt thing kind of functions like a dragon. Sure, I'll go with it. But it was very much an episode about Stark needing to realize what his place in the party is. Why is he even traveling with them? The answer mostly being because it's what pulled him out of his depression. It's the thing that actually gave him something worth doing. Mostly Fern. The answer is Fern. It's actually 100% Fern. There, I summed up the entire episode for you. Animation was great, as usual, as you expect. Everything looked wonderful. The most important part about watching a show such as that. Unfortunately, though I guess he didn't mind watching it again, I don't blame him. I'm usually in that position myself. Marsupial decided to watch it without me early in the morning. So later that afternoon, or I guess evening, it was probably closer to dinner time, he had to watch it again. I don't know why you just can't wait. How often I waited to watch Ranma until he was available. Oh. Roommates, what are you going to do, right? Anyhow. The funnier thing about it is less my opinions on the Frieren episode, which is like, it was solid. It's one of those things where, which I kind of knew this from reading the manga before, but the longer the series goes on, the more I enjoy it. It was one of those ones I enjoyed from the outset, but the more it actually gets into their adventure and the relationship of Fern and Stark, which are the important characters in the series, the more I enjoy the series. But funny enough, on my anime list, a site whose ratings I normally don't care about unless it makes me laugh, and this is one of those cases, I knew a lot of people were salty for a while after Freerun came out, and it shot right up, passing things like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood as the highest rating series on the site, like ever. And it finally was dethroned by the second season of Freerun, which only has a single episode out. It is funny that people like the second season, I guess, conceptually so much so far, because there's not much to it, but like, hey, we like the first one, so of course we're going to rate the second one even better. That it has already beat the first season on the very same site. Even things like, what were some of the other ones that were up there next to it by Brotherhood? Steins Gate was also one of the highest rated ones of all time. Chainsaw Man, the movie, the Reza arc, also dropped down. I think that one was the highest, or the second highest rated after Freerun. So now it's in slot number 3. Freerun's got both of the top slots, which personally I think is a little unjust, though. As funny as it is. I get it. It has a separate title. A lot of anime do this. It's just kind of like a convention in Japan where you go off on break, you come back, and the title is like part 2 or season 2 or whatever, and they actually label it as if it's a different part of the series, when really it's just a continuation of the first part of the series. I really think it should just be lumped in with Freerun Season 1. It's kind of weird that it's taking up 2 slots. It's done by the same animation team. For the most part, I think, it's mostly Studio Madhouse doing it. But I think I saw that Mappa was involved too. Almost nothing is made by a single studio anymore if it's a big enough budget. Almost like it is with video games. You have different studios working on everything. I think all I could tell, though, Mappa was doing, I think, either one of the openings or close. It was either the opening or the closing of this part. I don't remember which one it was. It was hard to make out. It was all in Japanese. And my verbal Japanese is bad enough. Don't even get me started on how bad my literacy is. But I think they did the animation on, like, the ending, maybe? Which the opening and ending were both phenomenal. Great. Even if you have certain opinions on how good Freerun is as a story, that is going to be entirely subjective. But as a work of animation, it is definitely top-notch. Everything always looks stellar when you're watching Freerun. Every shot, every angle, the backgrounds all look nice. The lighting, the way it integrates into the animation, just all looks great in every shot. And speaking of like other phenomenal things, like I get to compare it recently because we were rewatching like an earlier work that I think Madhouse did. I know they did the original Hellsing. I don't remember if they also animated Ultimate. I think they did. I think I saw that in the credit. But looking at animation from that time, back in the mid-aughts, usually I hold that up as a higher standard than some of the stuff we see now. Because there's a lot of studios that are using digital techniques that have been around for a while now, even back in the aughts. But there's some newer ones that didn't exist back then. They're using them to take shortcuts that make the shortcuts people used to take during physical animation, where you had to actually draw everything on cells, look like a lot of work. You know, like the corners they're cutting now tend to be ridiculous. Oh, hey Mike, how you doing? But it's not something I can say about Freerun. The Freerun's animation puts to shame stuff from even the same studios back when we had like a higher standard for how animation should look. In fact, I would say Freerun probably looks better than any. Yeah, I would say probably looks better than any Studio Madhouse production I've seen before. And I've watched quite a lot of them, going all the way back to like Trigun, Gungrave. so many. I've got like a ton of Madhouse stuff just on my hard drive that I rewatched a couple years ago. And I think Freerun definitely looks even better than that. Mike said didn't even realize that it was past 9 p.m. his time. Yeah, and it snuck up on me too. I almost wasn't even ready to run the show today. But I made it here in time, and I got a lot of stuff pulled up. Sometimes I think we do need to be able to separate with how good a story is with how good the animation is. Now, I think the story of Freerun so far has also been above average. Maybe even great. Somewhere between there. Haven't quite decided yet. I am a little bit further than where the animation is. And so I don't know exactly where it's going. I'm not like fully caught up with the manga or anything. Maybe I should go back to reading it. But it's still been pretty good. It's definitely above average storytelling, writing, dialogue, all of that. It handles the episodic nature of a long-form story like this really well. I don't think there's been a boring chapter of the story that I've encountered. From my perspective. But the animation is even better than above average. Like, I would definitely say the animation is solidly in the category of great. And everyone in the industry should be looking at this. Now, obviously, if you have the budget to match it, I wouldn't have like a low budget thing being criticized for not being able to match how good the animation is in Freerun. Budget has a lot to do with what you can do, work within your capability. But if you're somewhere in the same range of it, I think it is something that everyone should be looking at. Obviously, there's some things it doesn't do as well as other stuff, but that's because it's trying to be a little more, I guess, realistic in form. Though there's times where they get some pretty dynamic shots when it comes to perspective, with crazy foreshortening. But you're not really going to see the people, like, break and twist in the way that you would traditional cartoon. And that's fine, because that's not the type of story it is. You really wouldn't necessarily want that in the type of story that it is. And those are things you do have to consider when you're looking at the animation of something. But it does have many, many shots. I like, sometimes Freerun's hair is practically liquid, the way the pigtails are. It has many shots that you could only do in animation. And I think that is the point of animation, is you should be trying to have shots and sequences that you would not be able to do in real life, because maybe a person just wouldn't do that, or maybe unless you did some type of realistic animation on top of it, which is something we do a lot now using computer integration. Nothing might really do that. So it kind of deserves a spot as like the highest rated show right now. I don't know, what is it? Yeah, I guess we'll talk about this every Monday, basically, as long as I still have stuff to talk about, unless I've got more important things to talk about than what I watched over the weekend, because it should be recurring every single Saturday. I do know that I think the manga is still on hiatus. So at the rate that the show is going, it might end up catching up to the manga, and the show might have to go on a hiatus for quite a while. Which I would prefer that to happen. I kind of like that we are finally moving into an era where we're not really dealing with filler in anime anymore, right? We're dealing with just gaps in production, which can be kind of sad. Like, sometimes it's like, oh man, I haven't seen my favorite characters in a while. It would be cool to have something new. I get it. You know, everybody's got their favorite show. I'm a stickler for the source material, though. I would much rather something have gaps in production than just start going on to filler, because unless you can hire the creator to come in and write the filler. The problem is, a lot of the times the reason there's gaps in the production is because for the health of the creator, they need to go on hiatus. So you can't really have them coming in to write the filler either. And that is the case here with Tanizaki, who translated, maybe poorly, because you never know with the person who decided to translate it how well they do it. It says, I need to be in good health, so I'll be taking proper care of myself. And I hope everyone stays well and takes care too. Don't know when Atsumi Tanizaki is coming back, but eventually we're probably going to catch up to wherever they left off. I think both of them, because this is an author-illustrator duo. But I don't hear as much about Kanehito Yamada's health. So I don't know if it was strictly for the illustrator's health, or maybe both of them just needed the break. At the rate that the manga industry works they probably both needed a break, even the person who primarily focuses on writing the scripts. They work you to the bone in that industry, mostly because you let them. That's something we always have to consider when it comes to this stuff. The highly hyper-competitive manga industry and anime industry in Japan only works people to the bone because they have a culture of letting themselves be worked to the bone. Most of them have like regulated time off planned into their schedules, and then they don't take it because they know if they don't take it, somebody else could end up rising up and taking their place. There's like this really almost too strong of a work ethic culture in Japan. I'm glad these two feel like they can take the time off, even if it's because they have to. I hope this is something that really works their way more into the industry than they have been. But we'll see. You know, if every mangaka took the summer off or something, you know, like if they had a season run, which there's only supposed to, right? Your manga's only supposed to run through a certain time of the year, but the problem is the creators don't stop making it when it's not running because they need to stay ahead of the production schedule. If they all got like a summer vacation or something, there would probably be no problems. Doesn't mean they all has to be summer. Somebody's could be winter, somebody's could be fall. Doesn't matter. But if they all like, you had a planned seasonal vacation where your thing just doesn't run and you don't even really have to worry about getting ahead on the story, we probably wouldn't have the health concerns that people have. The issue is, I bet if the studio forced them to take the time off, they'd probably just go make a one-shot for another magazine or something in that time, because these people are crazy. But I'm not even going to say they're crazy because they're Japanese. That's just the way it expresses in their culture. All artists and creatives are crazy in one way or another. I can tell you this myself. It's just the truth. Most of them don't do healthy things when it comes to the production of their work, either in the negative way of working too hard and overproducing at the risk of their health, or in the opposite negative way of underproducing. It's just how artists are, and that's how the insanity of artists tend to express themselves through the Japanese culture, where they overwork and often die doing their job. Hopefully there'll be some type of correction to that, because I like a lot of these people works, and I don't like knowing that they all get sick and have to take hiatuses, but you know, it is what it is. Other thing to watch. Actually, this one I didn't watch until earlier today, though it's probably been up for a while. I don't actually pay attention what day of the week Fire Force came out, but there were 2 episodes I think already, and I watched both of them just at irregular times. One of them earlier today. And Fire Force is a series I've been enjoying quite a bit. I knew I would. I spent, last year, randomly. I think it was mostly during the summer, catching up all the way through to where Fire Force left off. From the first episode through the end of season 2. And that took a little bit of time, but I enjoyed every episode that I watched. I liked Soul Eater before it. I think some of the things I enjoy the most about Fire Force is not just the original story, but when there are little pokes and prods at Soul Eater. Sometimes I'm not even sure which ones were in the manga because I have not read it. I should go back to the manga and read Fire Force so I can see these differences. But some of them might even just be visual gags that were added into the animation just because they kind of exist in the same world, I guess. Sometimes I start to think that Adola might just be the world that Death lives in, like the Soul Eater people. It's hard to tell, but I'm also not caught up with the story. I'm sure somebody who's reading the manga could be like, no, those are all just coincidental things. The most recent episode actually ended. It was a episode focusing mostly on Benimaru and him basically overcoming his childhood, like finally realizing that he is the guy who's in charge of his like firefighting squad. And was it Akibara or whatever? Akihabara? I actually cannot remember it. But like actually he comes to term that he has finally surmounted the shadow the former leader left behind when he died, and also with how like he died so pitifully in an alleyway and abandoned him. He came to terms with that too, because like leadership was thrusted onto him. Really good fight. Nice animation. Very explosive, but because everything's based in fire in Fire Force, everything is pretty explosive all the time and makes it very visually appealing. It was a good episode. But at the very end, it showed the moon, and the full moon faded away, and the moon from Soul Eater was left behind, which I don't think is the first time we saw it. Talk about one of those references, those little visual bits where it could be connected. In Adola, the Soul Eater moon was there previously. So for people like me that are only following the animation, it is very interesting to see bits like that, where that very familiar smiling moon from Soul Eater pops up. Very much enjoyed that. Though I think my favorite gag so far, I think, was sometime last season. It was like at the very beginning. It was either the very beginning of last season or near the end of the first season, where they cut to a bar, like one of those girls' clubs where you can get a hostess, and Spirit was there. I want to say that was actually probably in the middle of last season, because I think it was up to the point where I had caught up to where it was dubbed, and I started watching it in Japanese, which is how I'm watching it now. I only watched it dubbed to begin with, because to get started with the show, it was easier to leave it on the background while doing chores and stuff. But now that I'm caught up, it's like I'd much rather watch it subbed anyway. The English voices, though, for the most part, I would say maybe 70% at least tonally accurate. One of the things that always bothers me, jumping between Japanese and English, obviously the Japanese voices for this stuff are the intended voices for the character. Sometimes it's just the studio decided it, but sometimes also the creators involved, and they deny something because it's like, that just doesn't fit the voice of the character. Regardless, those are the intended voices of the character. And a character could be such a type that the English voice doesn't have to match one for one. Right? Even if its tone can be a little different, as long as they're getting the acting of the character down. But sometimes the character's personality in the animation is so formed by the voice that it's weird when you jump over to the dub and the voice is just like nothing, not even remotely the same. They didn't find somebody who is in the same zone at all. It's like this just feels like a completely different character. I would say Fire Force's English dub tonally, it's like 70% accurate. Now, linguistically accurate might be a bit lower, but I don't think it's unwatchable. Apparently, I'm trying to remember what happened before the recent episode. There was like a time gap from when the pillar rose up at the end of the prior season to where Shinra woke back up, and he was a different person that entire time. Like, his doppelganger came in and possessed his body, dyed his hair, got tattoos, was just an overall devil. Like the rumors that traveled about him in school back in the day. And then in the current one, the former leader of Benimaru's fire squad, local fire squad, not part of the fire force, they only recently joined it under his lead, came back as like a devil himself, but he was almost like a god. Like he was way stronger than the guy was during his life. And it's starting to imply that maybe Adola has something to do with the realm of the imagination in some ways, because everybody's perceptions of people are coming to life, and they're having to deal with that. It's pretty wild. I kind of like where it's going, but I've been liking where it's going, so I'm kind of just like strapped in for the ride at this point. I don't know how much of the audience is also like that, but I actually don't even know what the temperature is on Fire Force. I would assume it's popular, that it's doing pretty good. It's like one of the only shonens that we have right now that are running, right? Like if Fire Force is running, I think Gachikuda is also running. Very similar series. One is almost like a spiritual successor to the other in some ways. Frierin's running. I'm trying to think what other popular shonen are running right now. I can't think of too many. I know Steel Ball Run will be starting up soon, and I cannot wait to get into that. I love Steel Ball Run. I like JoJo's in general. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Really good series. And I really liked 6 back when I read it originally, Stone Ocean. But Steel Ball Run was really cool because it was like a fresh start, right? It was like a soft reset to everything. And it was also designed to just be more, I guess, cinematic is a good word for it. Every shot, these huge, wide, sprawling shots of the American frontier designed to look like they were in a Western movie are really fun. It's a visually beautiful story. Most of JoJo's is, in general, but even more so with Steel Ball Run. Went to the nines with it. And it's probably got the goofiest, craziest story out of any part of JoJo's. So I can't wait to see some of the animation for that. I don't know, where is Steel Ball Run gonna be airing? 'Cause Netflix was doing the like localization for it. Is Netflix still doing the localization? Let's find out. March 19th. Oof, that's a while away. I have to wait all the way till March for Steel Ball Run? Oh well. I'll be patient. And it will be releasing on Netflix worldwide. Okay. Easy watch. easiest watch of my life, like I'm gonna skip Steel Ball Run. I think the spin was probably the most interesting concept in JoJo's in a really long time, because I really liked Timon. Stands were cool when they first introduced. They didn't really stop being cool, but they never really got cooler, right? We were just stuck with stands for the longest time. I didn't want them to go away either. I just wanted some other stuff, and that's basically what Steel Ball Run gave us. It's like, yeah, he's gonna give you more stuff, but also the stands and stuff are still around too. Like everything's here, and it was just this wacky, like horse race across the American countryside. I love a good run. And every single one of the characters are interesting in that one, too. Even characters like the President of the United States are interesting in Steel Ball Run. That'll definitely be worth it. Here's a funny thing to talk about for a little bit, because I brought it up sometime last week. So, Cory in the House, for some reason, is now the second highest rated game of all time on Metacritic, and it's terribly close to overtaking Expedition 33 in the user ratings. But that's not the funny part. We already talked about that. That's old news. In the wake of that, listings for that game on eBay are now getting into the range of ridiculous pricing. Some of the pricing is even set at meme levels for a laugh. So they can go anywhere from $50, which is, I would say, a little understandable, though I think that's still more expensive than the game was on release. Pretty sure that game was probably only $40, as most DS games were. Maybe it would be that price with inflation, but it's also an old game, so only if it was still in the sealed plastic wrapping. If it's a used version, it definitely could not be worth that much. But some of the listings are going as high as things like $1,420.69 for the meme, obviously. But easily there's things at $700, $190, ridiculous listings for the second highest user rated game of all time. I see a lot of other reasonable ones where it's like $10, but you forbid, so it's whoever ends up buying it. That to me, if it's not in the plastic wrapping, is the most reasonable price. Like, yeah, $10 for a game this old that, let's be real, aside from the meme, it's not very good. It's not that great of a game. Most licensed games are not very good. You point to me a good licensed game like that, and I'll shove it in the pile with the other 10 in the history of video games, if it's not already in that pile. But it is funny how I think some people are actually bidding on these for the meme, which, if you've got that much money to throw away, you should probably be doing better things with it. Like, it's probably single people. It probably is. I think man or woman, doesn't matter. If I was married to somebody who spent $1,420.69 plus tax and shipping and whatever on a copy of Cory in the House, I think that's grounds for divorce right there. I don't care what the meme is. That actually, in some religions, that might be grounds for annulment. Just like, yeah, we don't even recognize that you guys were ever married. It's ridiculous, but funny. Funny all the same. Oh, I think I closed one of the tabs I wanted to read. Where is it? We got word from the current head of Pokemon, the current boss, which is Tsunekazu Ishihara, about the upcoming games, because obviously there's always an upcoming Pokemon game. It's been a little bit since Scarlet and Violet. There's a new Switch out, and the only thing that's come out was Legends Z to A, which I think is utter dog shit, if you ask me. Probably not even for the same reasons a lot of people would, but some of those reasons are put in there. I don't have high graphical standards for a Pokemon game. In fact, I don't really have high graphical standards for most games. Graphics aren't really a thing that bothers me. But for something with the budget of a Pokemon game, or the potential budget for a Pokemon game, because you should be throwing a lot of money at Pokemon. It is the highest grossing franchise in the entire world. That game looked pretty bad. I don't care about the models. I think the models were fine. It's the fact that the buildings were just boxes with textures slapped on them. Like, you could have done more work than that. But that's not why I rate the game bad. I actually think the gameplay is pretty bad. That's why I didn't end up getting Z to A. And some people like it. I don't like this MMO light cooldown system. I'm a traditional turn-based guy. If you're going to give me a Pokemon game, either make it turn-based or make it full action. I don't really want anything in between. A turn-based game, like they've always been, or a full action game where during battle you become the Pokemon, similar to Pokken Tournament, which is a game I liked a lot, but integrated into a bigger story. Anyhow, that was the last Pokemon game. I don't think it's good. They're working on others. They're always working on others. We're waiting for the next full Pokemon game, which will probably have a new region. There'll probably be 2 versions of it. Hopefully it's better than Scarlet and Violet. And Ishihara had this to say, and only this to say, where Pokemon has the power to connect the world. Again, this is translation, may not be accurate. And is a major driving force for me, I think, about how to produce the next game. And he talks about how the Pokemon devs have faced many challenges along the way, including how back in the original Pokemon games, Red and Green, they had such a huge goal, like a lofty goal with how the game to make the game work, but it took a lot of trial and error because they didn't really know what they were doing at the time. The original Pokemon games were pretty broken, if you've ever played them. I had the fortunate childhood of being able to play the original Pokemon games 3 years after they came out. I think that's when we got them, because they were like 95 in Japan, and I think they came out in 98 here. But I played them when they came out in the States. Brand new. Fun game. I love going back to replay Red. It's pretty busted, though. The things did not necessarily work the way they wanted. And to be fair, they were basically inventing a new system, because no game at all had ever done something at that scale with trying to balance and have all these different monsters and all these different moves work out. You could say like Megaten had tried that before, but it wasn't quite at the scale that Pokemon was going to. Their ambitions were really high. And they got better over time. I think there's a peak to Pokemon's probably during the DS era when it came to all facets of gameplay. But I don't like what he's saying here. Not because it's not something good to say, that the fact that Pokemon has the power to connect the world is a driving force for him. It's like, that doesn't tell me anything about your plans for Pokemon going forward, though. Outside of, like, I don't know, that sounds like you could make a Pokemon MMO that you're never going to make. Like, that's definitely not what he means. But that's, like, the only thing that comes to my head. Or Pokemon Live Service game, which they've made several of those for mobile already. But these aren't the things that he's ever talking about. A Pokemon MMO is not in the question. People have wanted that forever. Pokemon Company has no desire to make that. It's just not something they want to do. And I don't blame them. That is a huge hurdle that is only asking for failure. I think, though, it probably means that they don't want to return to Japan in the games. I think that's a big thing. I don't think they have any desire of making another Japanese region. That's fair. They've already got quite a few Japanese regions. I think the first, 4 regions were all in Japan. And the rest of the world is much bigger than Japan. I think as a team, they don't want to go back to Japan, right? It's like, we live here. we see Japan all the time. Our main audience, actually, Pokemon's main audience is basically everyone. So that's double fold, where it's like their main Japanese audience has already seen enough of Japan with 4 games. They can always go back and play them. And their international audience probably wants to see the rest of the world too. And so we've been to America technically 3 times, but only 2 times in the main games. The third time was Pokemon Coliseum in the Ora region, which is right about where I live right now. We've been to France, we've been to Spain, we've been to England. I think they probably want to explore more of the world. What I would like them to explore is good gameplay. I think that's the thing they've been failing to explore for quite a while. Do kids mind? That's actually probably the better question. How much do kids care? I should talk to some kids about recent Pokemon games. Because Pokemon's not really made for people my age. Sort of. They kind of are, just because they knew people grew up with it. So people my age still like Pokemon. But it's mostly targeted at the younger generation. That's why they finally got rid of Ash in the cartoon. And finally moved forward with another group of people. My thing was, I wish that the anime was more like the games to begin with. If the anime was always Pokemon Origins, Generations, and Evolutions, that would have been cooler. But they finally moved away from Ash, and I think that was a concession that they are trying to focus on the target demographic of Pokemon. And I think the games are trying to do that too. That might be part of why they're exploring these like cooldown system fights and stuff. They're trying to see like what a younger audience might like. I remember as a kid, I actually preferred turn-based games even more than I do now, because they were easier to manage, right? Your reflexes are pretty high as a kid, like your hand-eye coordination isn't, though. And I mean as a young kid. Kids are klutz. Like, you're growing into your body. Things are not the same from one day to the next. I don't think I was actually pretty good at action games until I was probably 12, like maybe a preteen, is when I actually started getting good at action games. And then I was good at them into probably my 20s. I'm okay at them now, not because I couldn't be, I just don't care as much as I used to. But when I was a really, really young kid, I preferred RPGs because menuing was just an easier thing for me to get a hold of. It was easy for me to like figure out the puzzle that was battle. Sure, it involved reading, and I think that is a hurdle for the youngest of kids. But it led to more interesting and dynamic gameplay than playing an action game that was dumbed down to the mechanical ability of a young kid. Because I used to play games like, I don't know, Bugs Bunny's Birthday Bash. Super easy game. Replaying as an adult, not satisfying at all. That's the kind of game that a kid can play. But once you learn to read, RPGs are just your open door for all kinds of like interesting games that actually make you think and might give you a proper challenge, and then you feel rewarded for overcoming that challenge. So I don't know if moving into action gameplay is actually good for their target demographic. It might be more that they feel like they're trying to keep and capture the older demographic they think they might be losing. And I don't know if those are the people you need to focus on. I'm not sure at all. It's a weird balancing act, because you don't want to lose the older people. They are your core audience. They're the people who've been buying your games forever. Though I don't think you would lose them if you kept the same type of gameplay that you've had forever. clearly they like that gameplay. But also, it's a game that's built for kids. So your target demo are going to be people like the people who've been buying your game forever, but younger. And I think probably the way to keep getting new people like that is probably to just continue making the games the way you always have. But then again, Game Freak is just tired of making Pokemon the way it is. That's probably the real reason. It's probably not talking about like not wanting to lose players. It's probably not even talking about trying to get a new audience. I think Game Freak just wants to make something different. We've talked about that many times before, but you probably shouldn't risk your cash cow. It's something I said back when, several years ago, Game Freak said they were moving Pokemon to their B team and focusing on other games like that. Most of them have been failure. I think My Town Hero was one of them. I can't remember the elephant game on PlayStation that was basically the Rambi levels of Donkey Kong, but, made by a different company. Almost every game Game Freak's made that hasn't been Pokemon has, for the most part, been a failure. It has not returned more than their budget. And they care more about making those games than Pokemon. I think you just kind of always need to worry about that, though, because Pokemon is your cash cow. It's your money. It prints it. It is a franchise that as long as you continue doing things the way you've been doing, it prints money. Why would you jeopardize something that prints money? It's something I'll never understand. But, even if you're not a artist, if you're not a writer, not a musician, regular dev work is also creative work too. Programming is creative work. Coming up with mechanics, coming up with interesting ways to do things. All creatives, after a while, are just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something new. And that's one of the reasons why series tend to evolve and change over time. And sometimes creatives actually care about what they're doing more than they do about their money. Actually, that happens to be most of the time. Most of the time, creatives care far more about what they're doing than they do about money. That is something that's just kind of consistent among creatives anywhere in the world. Anywhere you go in the world. You need money to continue doing what you want to do, but you care about what you want to do way more than the money. Creative people and markets just don't get along. That's why usually you need like a marketing team or somebody who specializes in that stuff to make sure that you actually make money off of what you're doing. You'd think the marketing team would probably be yelling at Game Freak, be like, hey, please just do things in a way that makes us money. Not a little bit of money, lots of money, like you used to. I think Pokemon Company, with all of their other endeavors, I mean, they make most of their money off of merchandise. But with their other gaming endeavors where they license things out, their mobile games, their fill-in party games and stuff, are probably carrying the bulk of the weight when it comes to the gaming division of Pokemon right now. And to the point that I don't think Game Freak even has to care. And maybe that's why they're getting worse at what they're doing. I think you probably only get better when you have to care about it. But what do I know? I don't know the ongoings and conversations that Game Freak is having on a regular basis, or that the Pokemon Company. We only get these little snippets here and there. All of this is just wild accusations of somebody who's been following it for a long time and trying to put patterns together. Anyhow, that's the show. That's the hour you've got from me, or yes, more like 40 minutes because we take 5 minutes to get on and off the show. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, whether you're here now or watching from the future, please grab that link, share it with somebody else. And if you really, really enjoy it, you can always give a donation to streamlabs.com/Vomitorium Live. Really helps me out. Goes towards getting a new computer so that these streams can be better. And we'll see you guys maybe tomorrow if my schedule is open for it. But definitely when Arknights Enfield comes out. I will probably not be doing this show that night because we're just going to stream. We're just going to continue streaming for as long as we can and see how far we get. So I'll see you guys then. Take it easy.